Mr. King, is it sad that mine's happiness for being able to click two pens at the same time?
Yep. All right. I already kind of gave you these three terms, or saying it aloud so far as persuasive strategies, and there are three traditional ones: the ethos, the pathos, the logos. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each one, but the general surface definition to it: ethos is going to be appeal to the speaker's credibility. Pathos is more of an emotional appeal. You're requiring on some kind of reaction from the audience. So if you're trying to instill fear and they're laughing at you, the pathos is not working very well. Logos is going to be the main one that we are going to look at, focus upon, where you are appealing to the audience's sense of logic. So down here then it says statistics, examples, stories, testimony. It's not that necessarily all those things are going to be in there, but you have a logical, rational, reasoned argument behind it. But by me going that we're going to focus on logos, that's not to take away from the effectiveness of the top two. They can be very effective and very important. The problem with the first one is ethos. No offense, you don't have it so far as credibility. You could argue, come April, that you do have credibility. Mr. King's read some of your essays. He likes what he has. You've discussed. You've had a productive discussion within class. And we go, hey, Emily's ideas are pretty good. Jordan has a good idea. Wearing her Steinbeck College hoodie. There's good stuff here. The problem is, though, when you take an AP exam, who's scoring your essays? Some person who has never met you, you have never met them, you are but a number to their critiquing, grading eye. So they're not going to go, this is what Jack has done, or this is what Michelle has offered. Nope. So you're not going to have that credibility. Now you can establish your credibility a little bit, nice introduction, good argument in the body paragraph, maybe it'll help, but it's really not going to make or break what's going on from an essay standpoint. The pathos, please love my essay. I really tried hard on this one, is not going to do anything. Pathos with emotion, it tends to be a little bit more manipulation, and that's not to say that you're terrible people when you use emotional appeal, but a lot of the times, think about when you would use emotional appeal. You're trying to get something out of someone. Mom, please, 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 please. Or you're just have that ability. Nicole can get that tear to well just at the right time, so it'll start to stream down the cheek and the bottom lip begins to quiver. 3-year-olds know how to do emotional appeal very well. Anyone who works at Shop and Save, Coons, or Giant Eagle in the checkout line knows this. Little kid sees candy, little kid wants candy, little kid goes, can I please have some candy? Can I please have some candy? If mom or dad say no, what does little kid then do? Get louder and louder. I need candy! Embarrassment starts to end up being that emotional appeal where you don't want to look like an idiot, mom or dad, do you? And so then might be able to get it. So these things can be effective, but so far as creating an argument, they're not going to be effective for us. Down here, I don't want you to get worried or thinking that I need to have statistics, I need to have someone's testimony in order for an argument to work. No, that's not the case. You don't have the ability to research those things while you are writing an essay, but you have facts, you have examples, you have specific ideas to ultimately back it up. Again, just going into a little bit of detail about some of these things. Ethos, this is established with the writer, the speaker, through character being believable or trustworthy, or the opposite. This person is not trustworthy, therefore I am not going to believe him or her. But this is basically going to be established by previous impressions or knowledge, which again is why you don't really have it when it comes to a D or Q writing. Now, you could certainly have ethos when it comes to other things. Shelby's going, should I read the Metamorphosis? Luke goes, no. If you trust Luke and you find him to be a viable candidate, option, credible, you're not going to read it. If whatever Luke says is not true, then you're going to discount it. So friends could have this, family could certainly have it. Martin Luther King Jr., when we read I Have a Dream and we were doing a soapstone, and we're going about who is he as a speaker. He's a religious leader, minister, civil rights activist. I mean, those are the kinds of things that establish a person's credibility or ethos. So it tends to be through previous knowledge or impressions. Someone might have ethos in one category but not in another. End of the year, well, it's not really end of the year, it's more like January when you start thinking about next year's schedule. Mr. Kane, should I take this English class? You might value my opinion. Mr. Kane, should I take this math class? You might not value it as much. Maybe you'll end up valuing it more compared to the English class. You can send Mrs. Kane an email and then she'll give you information back. So, established based on impression knowledge that you have of person. Pathos, again, we're going into manipulation aspect here. It's appeal to the emotions of the reader or listener, and you need that audience participation. If the dangerous thing with pathos, especially in writing, you're not going to know the reaction that you're getting. If you're speaking and you try to do a nice little one-liner icebreaker and the crowd chuckles, you know that appeal worked. You don't know that in an essay, because you're not watching me score it or you're not watching the grader score it. So if you try to start off with a funny little comment or rhetorical question that's supposed to be thought-provoking, and I'm twiddling my fingers, going like this, you gotta be kidding me. You don't recognize how effective it is or is not at the time. Maybe some arguments might lend themselves to pathos working a little bit more, but to be honest, I can't think of any AP argument questions where I can think pathos would work right away. Maybe in what we were talking about yesterday so far as things that you fear or ruin, or things that you fear or hate could ruin society, you might be able to play off of the fear aspect and whatnot, but for the most part, your evidence is still going to be very logical, specific support, not necessarily going to be emotional. Which emoji matches up with people in here? That one would be you.
I would think it would be the angel. The one crying.
Who's crying? You.
Someone that's like crying loud.
Yeah, like.
Well, there's a crying heart, like an acne.
Or like Heart of Darkness.
I'm the one that's like trying to smile, but
Maybe Holden. Kurtz would definitely have a little angel. Yeah, that's about it. We'll find characters for them. Again, with pathos, you're looking to sway emotion in order to get that judgment, and that's really where that manipulation aspect starts to come through. Now the one that really matters for us, and that's going to be logos. So this is going to be the backbone of any kind of argument that we put together. This is making a rational appeal to the listener or the reader. For us, it's going to be reader because we're not really doing speeches. Through reasoning, logic, you have examples, you have support to back it up. There are specific, whether it be examples from current society, contemporary societies needed yesterday, historical precedents for it, personal examples that would be relevant. Maybe, depending upon the question, you are aware of some statistics or facts that would be supportive, although that's never going to be a necessity. DRQ questions are meant to not favor any specific person so far as other classes that they have taken. Maybe if you're in A-Push and have discussed something, you might think it's a little bit more familiar, but there's not the expectation that you would be quoting specific facts or being able to pull any kind of information out that would be ultimately specific that needs cited, but you can still have a logical, rational approach. Yesterday, when we were looking at the things that we thought could end up being hurtful to society, be it technology, some kind of addiction, we had specific reasons, points behind it that would validate it. that's going to be that logos aspect. So much like with the rhetorical devices, you have specific examples to back it up. For a DRQ argument question in your logos, those specific examples provide that logical support to the argument that you are trying to get across. Write all this down. It's very important notes here. We got a commercial going to show you. It's like 30 seconds. Commercials, advertisement are probably one of the easiest ways to see where ethos, pathos, logos is going to be taking place. So watch commercial, start thinking in your mind, where do you see ethos, where do you see pathos, where do you see logos, and we'll talk about it.
Glenn's the man going to work. Got his tie, got ambition. Middle management is right in his grasp. It's a dream he will never let die. Glenn's the man of the hour. He's the king of his cue. Status quo reports and finally met their rival. Burning the candle in both ends on his way to the top. He knows one day he just could become supervisor.
Starbucks double shot espresso drink, written on the day.
Roy.
So what do you see? Ethos, pathos, logos. I mean, because ultimately, what do they want you to do? Buy the product, buy the beverage, buy the drink. So is there a credibility approach, ethos? Is there an emotional appeal with pathos, logical approach, logos, a little bit of all of the above? What do you see? Pathos, emotional appeal, that tends to be the one that people go to initially. How so? Where is that emotional appeal taking place with this? First period tried to convince me that the band is not real and it's just in his head. No, that band is there. Rose? Okay. And generally people are going to kind of chuckle at it and whatnot as they watch it. How is me laughing? Right. How is me laughing going to get me to buy their product? Okay, so if I'm in the store or somewhere and I see the product, that's a good commercial. Sure. Try it out and see what I think. Okay. What else? Mr. Kern would love this commercial. Why would Mr. Kern love it?
It's the Rocky song. And Rocky is very emotional.
And it's from the 1980s, and Mr. Kern loves everything from the 1980s.
I don't know about that.
What's the song like meant to be?
Inspiration.
Like what's the parody? Like what's the actual song? Which is getting
yeah.
okay. Which it's 2016. I don't know. That song's at least 30-some years old, and there's still that nostalgic appeal that we'd be going with. It's a motivational song, bring on the day. So yeah, that can kind of get you geared up for it. Ben? No, I thought you were going to give me the exact year the song was from. I was going to be impressed. And if you're a Rocky IV fan, like Mr. Kern would be, then that also could get you going. Should be on your workout playlist and start getting Eye of the Tiger going. Anything else? Any logos? Any logical approach to it? I mean, Jack, is this speaking to you from a logical standpoint as to this is why you need to get this beverage? No. Anything?
It says like it's a lot of really good sizes and things you can be like Roy, whatever his name was.
Roy does have his own commercial. It's not his own. It's Glenn's. Glenn's the main guy that we have in
He
this
could be
one.
like Glenn if he drank Starbucks coffee.
Well, what's the product? Starbucks. And what did they specifically? What kind? Because it's not traditional coffee. Did you catch that to the end? It's a double shot, meaning from a caffeine coffee standpoint, how many? So it's basically 2 servings worth of caffeine. What is the hope or the logical approach that some would say by having the 2 shots of caffeine? What's that going to do for you? It will energize you, and you will be ready for the day. You could be more productive in the first part of the day. You might crash also after lunchtime, and then that's a whole other issue that we'll have to get into. But there actually could be a productive aspect of the day that could be helpful for you. How about ethical approach? Because I would say there is a credibility aspect to this as well. And it's going to depend upon the person as to what you like and don't like.
At the end of the commercial, they just sort of flash the Starbucks logo. You're like, hey, that's us.
And for some people, that logo could mean absolutely everything. There are some of us who are fiends when it comes to Starbucks. I will try that product because I love everything from Starbucks. At the same time, there's going to be some who are going to get turned away. I don't want anything to do with Starbucks. There's no way I'm going to try that. But if you already are a fan of Starbucks, then yeah, that product, that commercial could pull you in because I haven't had that yet. I need to try it out. What do we have going on here? It's an attempt at what? Logos, logic, logical reasoning, finding a similarity. Penguins, TV shows, both are black and white, therefore they must be the same thing. So that transitive property is in full swing when it comes to this one. Now, it doesn't mean that the logic is always going to make sense and always be worthy, but it's at least that attempt at a logical appeal. You're finding some support, some reasoning for it to work out. I mean, you already knew this, but... Yeah. Wait, what? What'd you just say?
Speech bubble.
You just said, I don't think Abraham Lincoln said that. That's Abraham Lincoln. You talk about like top 5 presidents, I bet he makes 99% of the people's list of top 5 presidents. He's also known as what? Or as who? He's not going to lie. You calling him a liar? Well, there you go. So if it's Honest Abe, he must be the truth, so therefore the credibility is there, ethos is in play. So ethos, we have the logos, and then the commercial with the pathos primarily, although the other ones are in there. You know, little just simple examples as to how those things work. The problem that's going to pop up for some of us, or all of us at one point, is you are going to be using something that is a logical approach in your mind, but it's not actually going to necessarily work. And this is where you need to keep track of these things. Katie's familiar with a lot of these from argumentation, although we got some new ones for you. Don't want everything to be the same. These are logical fallacies. The problem with logical fallacies from your standpoint is they're going to be unintentional. They tend to be mistakes. In your mind, this makes sense. But since it's a fallacy, there's usually going to be some kind of disconnect between the conclusion that you're coming to and the support that you are using for it. So a hasty generalization is basically what the term means. You're making a generalization without having enough data, an adequate sample to pull from of evidence. So you are quickly jumping to a conclusion. So my first TWA grade was not very good. I guess I will fail AP English Language and Composition this year. Not to say that cannot be true. They can be, and that's what makes logical fallacies kind of difficult. They can still be true, but you don't have enough evidence at this point to jump to that conclusion. Now, no one failed their first TWA, so we don't have to worry about that. But after the first day of school, when you got home, how was your day, dear? It was the worst day of my life. This year is going to suck. I can't stand being a junior. You're basing that presumption off of one day, 8 periods. Might be true. But that's not enough data, that's not enough evidence to ultimately support that. So one-time experience, even maybe 2 experiences, depending on the situation that you're looking at, isn't necessarily going to be enough of an example to make that the conclusion that you're ultimately trying to get to overall. So hasty generalization, just simply not enough of a sample size, not enough data. Elena didn't make cookies for my birthday. I guess she doesn't like me. That's not enough to jump to that conclusion. Now, if it's 3 years running, that data sample is getting a little bit larger. It's the day before your AP exam. Remember? I'm going to celebrate on the AP exam because it'll just be me in here and have my cupcake. No. You can bring in food.
Yes, I said.
Yeah, you can bring in food. I thought you wanted me to bring in food.
No, I
No.
don't figure that like.
I'm not.
She said, I don't.
That would be inaccurate. Hasty generalization, but accurate. False cause. This is like, since A happened before B, A therefore caused B. So assuming one event causes another just because it precedes it or it comes before it. Mr. Kane gave me a low grade on my essay yesterday. I hit a tree on the way home and totaled my car. Thanks, Mr. Kane. Or we could have put, I got stuck on my bus. And that could have been true. The second one, because I do control weather patterns, or how often and where birds decide to relieve themselves, every time I wash my car, it rains, or I get that new white spot on the windshield. Why? Because I washed my car. I have that power to control when it will rain. So people will tend to think or argue that there is a cause for it, but that would be a false cause. Why don't I wear white shirts? Because what's going to happen at lunch? That spaghetti sauce is going to jump out of the bowl and go right onto my shirt. But if I wear a colored shirt, that's not going to happen. Again, you might think, yeah, that's the reason why, but that would be an example of where that false cause comes in. We don't even have F's. We have E's.
Did we ever have
I don't think so. I think my high school was E's. College was F's. Professor McElwain had whatever letter he wanted. Yes. Yeah, I never saw a Z. I saw a Q once on a person's paper. But that meant it was really, really bad. The rumor was someone got like a double Z once, but I don't know.
Have you ever gotten like what was your lowest grade?
For like in what? Like just on any assignment?
Just any grade.
Remember I failed my midterm in Algebra 2. That was not good. And then I had the same math teacher the next year and the next year. But we got along well. It worked out. Slippery slope. This is like domino effect. Armageddon is coming. Apocalypse is now among us. The idea that you assume that if a certain step is taken, then a whole series of undesirable consequences is going to follow. Now this is where Kaylee's going, hey, I've heard this before. So you're not a fortune teller. You can't predict that just because this one event happens, a whole series of undesirable consequences are going to follow. So if we allow logging in national parks, pretty soon our national parks will be nothing but lumber yards, and we'll be selling cedar and redwood and oak and maple and all those things in Yellowstone, as opposed to going there and looking at the natural beauty of the land. Jack, do you know what the book is that we have up there? Not Green Eggs and... You got the right author. They're judging you now.
Yeah.
Do you have a Thneed? What are they? Truffalo trees? What's the trees?
Yeah.
Truffalo trees? Do you know in some sections of Oregon and California that book is banned from elementary schools? You cannot get it in the library?
Why?
The Lorax? Well, Oregon, Northern California, one of the main industries is logging. So, little Abby comes home from school. Hey, I read about the cutting down of trees. What a horrible thing. People who do that are terrible. Oh my goodness, we're terrible. So, I mean, it's political, which most of that stuff kind of ends up being, but yeah, they don't want kids reading something that is going to be going against what, you know, the local economy would be built around. So, have you ever read the Lorax, Jack? Well, that is some questionable material in some places of this country. False analogy. Siblings deal with this. I use it against Matt every time I see him. Going beyond simply pointing out a resemblance between two things, situations, people, whatever the case can be, and claiming that those things, situations, events are going to be the same or call for the absolute same response. So you have two, could be ideas, concepts, people. They share at least one common trait. Okay? Matthew and Kevin share the same last name. They come from the same family. Well, we know what that older sibling was like, so the assumption is that Matt is going to be just the same. Exactly the same. All the faults that Kevin had, Matt will possess as well. That's false analogy on my part. Just because something shares a resemblance doesn't mean they can be the same across the board. Wells. Ada Wells. Sat back there. Ada Dangler. Sat back there. That was a tough time. Assuming this is going to be a tough time, again, is going to be that whole false analogy taking place. In today's world, day and age, we probably have a simpler term that we would use for this, where you're going to build in presumption about a person or an event because of one trait, and we call it stereotyping. So that's basically the same idea. Now, stereotyping, we usually consider stereotyping of people. False analogy, can go with other things as well. Certainly not saying that the mistreatment of animals would be a good thing, but the legal penalties for the mistreatment of animals should be as severe as the penalties for the mistreatment of children. Majority, if not all people, would agree there should be penalties for the mistreatment of animals. I bet most people, though, would argue the mistreatment of children should be more severe than animals. But the argument is both animals and children depend on humans for kindness and nurturing, therefore the punishment should be the same. That would be a false analogy where just because there is one similarity requiring or dependent upon humans, adults for kindness and nurturing doesn't mean they're going to be the same in all characteristics and therefore should be dealt with in the same exact manner. Black and white reasoning, you also hear the term either or reasoning with this one for the simple reason that the term either and or will tend to show up within the argument. The thing with this, and it can be difficult to recognize, especially when you have prompts like yesterday, in a well-argued essay, explain why you agree or disagree with Postman's assertion. It's giving you two options. It's reducing it to two options, agree or disagree. Most problems, or at least a lot of problems, issues, are more complex than just having two outcomes, two solutions. And that's what's going on with black and white reasoning. You're taking an idea and you're having this or that. You're eliminating any kind of gray area, negotiation, third, fourth, fifth option. So either you take AP English Language and Composition, or you will grow up a homeless vagrant bringing shame to your friends and family. Either this will happen or that is going to be the outcome. Now, if someone comes up and puts a gun to your head and goes either your money or your life, you probably do have two options at that point. And you're not going to go, well, excuse me, sir, that's a logical fallacy. We need to talk about what the other options here would be. That might not be a wise way to go about it. But most problems don't just have two outcomes or two possible solutions. Bless you. Talk about like old schools having Fs. There was a big movement 10, 15, 20 years ago where you shouldn't have grades in school, but it should be you pass or you fail. Some people like that, some people don't, because, well, there's nuances, there's different, levels and whatnot, A, B, C, D, E, F, F minus, double Z. Those are more outcomes as opposed to pass, fail. Tom Joad's coming back. Lexi made a face when she saw Tom Joad's picture. Circular reasoning. Sometimes you do this on purpose because you only have one good idea and you're not sure what else you should write about, so you decide to restate it. Sometimes, and probably more often than not, you do this unintentionally but you tend to be redundant and write or say, argue the same thing over and over and over again. Circular reasoning, also called begging the question, you're basically restating your conclusion in different words, so it looks like you have multiple reasons. John Steinbeck writes about the struggles of the migrant Oklahoma people in The Grapes of Wrath. The people from Oklahoma must struggle as they migrate west to California. With no hope or place to go, the Jodes from Oklahoma must journey to California. All three sentences, while written differently, basically state the same thing over and over and over again. What were three causes for the XYZ affair in U.S. history? Well, U.S. and French diplomatic relations were not going very well. The French were kind of upset with the Americans. Also, the Americans were upset with the French. Hence, there was some difficult time finding agreement when it came to international affairs between the French and the Americans. 4 times said the same thing over and over and over again. So that's going to be a circular reasoning. If you do a TWA and I draw a picture of a dog chasing its tail, that means your argument's going in a circle, circular reasoning. If I spill something on your TWA, I'll just make the excuse that Sadie or Addie did it, and then you'll find it cute and endearing and want to keep it. Non sequitur. Literally means in Latin, from Latin, it does not follow. So you got an unconvincing pairing of a claim and a premise. I need an A in AP English Language and Composition because I want to go to Notre Dame. You give me the A, I go to Notre Dame, let's work out the deal. In Jack's mind, this might make sense. But what's he not taking into account? He needs to do the work. He needs to put in the effort for it. My favorite phone call was when I had the parent going, I robbed the family of $40,000 because if she had gotten an A in my class, Kaylee, she would have gotten that scholarship to Notre Dame. But that B ruined it for her. What am I going to do about the situation? And I said, well, Mrs. Straub, I'm sorry that Sam didn't make it into Notre Dame. No. But
So good.
what did I say?
Yeah, did that actually happen?
Like 10 years ago, I think. Ironically enough, the student was also very good at making cookies and like baked goods. Like Buckeyes were her thing, or the Oreo fudge little ball things. She was very good at making.
Well, expect a call from me.
Sorry, no, my
What school do you want to go to? Okay. I think it was actually about a specific assignment that took away the chance of getting the A, like the Grapes of Wrath essay or whatever the case. There's multiple factors that are going to go into it, so it's not just one thing. There were multiple factors that went into the grade, I'm sure. There are a lot of other academic opportunities that exist for the dear young fill in the blank. Sam.